All right, so we're live. Hey, everybody. John Paduchak.
And Ted Wasco.
And?
Victoria Hickman.
All right, so we're live, and we're just going to do a little walkthrough webinar jam for you guys today. So the first thing that I want to say is if you've got any questions in the chat, you'll notice at the top of the chat box that there is a special checkoff for questions. So that allows us to see that it's actually something that you're asking that's a question. So you can start, if you've got questions ahead of time, you can ask them, start to ask them. And also, we'll just kind of periodically look back at those so that we can kind of go through as they come up from time to time. So let's see. Why don't we just get started with where we see some of the biggest challenges that people have with Webinar Jam as they're getting started or as we're getting them set up in a production that's going to be done via Hangout, whether it's Webinar Jam, whether it's just a Hangout by itself or whatever. So why don't we start out with having the wired connection, right, Ted? That's like one of the big things that we see.
I wouldn't. I'll start at the beginning.
Yeah, because I mean that is one of the big things that we see, right? We see wired connection, not having the right equipment. Those are like immediately some of the biggest points of failure.
The biggest point of failure is that people don't know or understand what Hangouts and Webinar Jam is, and they will go and actually do or organise a Webinar Jam even without testing it and wonder why it blows up in their faces. How do we know this? Because we get the cries of help during, after, and everything else. So, yeah, you must learn how to use Webinar Jam and also what Hangouts are, because everybody blames Webinar Jam when something goes wrong. 90% of the time, it's a Hangout problem and also user error. So, yes. You get them bits done and you're well on the way. Then the next lot is what John is talking about, being hardwired to the computer, and that is a big no-no. It's hardwired and a decent camera.
Oh, that's interesting. Julie's asking, she said, my screen says plug-in failure. Is that me or Webinar Jam? That is not going to be Webinar Jam. So more than likely, you could try refreshing your screen, or it could possibly be, it's a Macintosh.
Get Julie to actually open up a different browser, copy the URL at the top, open up a different browser and come in with a different browser, because it might be a failure of the Hangout plugin, the Talk plugin.
So if you're on Google Chrome, you might want to try Safari or Safari Google Chrome and possibly try changing browsers. That might make a difference. Most of the time, if it's something on the watch page, it's usually a matter of just refreshing it, and it will pop up or pop back up. So that might be something that you want to try out. So yeah, so I think Ted did a great job kind of highlighting that Webinar Jam is really made for a larger audience. We want to get our word out to a big group of people. We're selling our product via webinar, or we're just doing a large roundtable seminar type thing, and we want to be able to collect a list, and it's for more than, I would say it's really appropriate for more than 50 people. If you're going to do like a small venue, maybe just as easy to set up as a Hangout event and use the Q&A there versus coming and doing it through Webinar Jam. So there's certainly places where if you want to do something very private, a regular Hangout event might be a better venue than here. The other thing too that people ask a lot is how to do the automated webinars. And Webinar Jam, although you've got the replay, it's not really maybe the best way to do automated webinars. You might want to use something like Evergreen Business Systems, EBS, for that.
I was just going to say, John, before we get too much involved, just for the people who don't know what hardwired means, it means having a cable from your modem to your computer and not relying on Wi-Fi.
We can almost tell immediately when somebody is on a wireless connection, because wireless varies up and down in signal, and they'll be cutting in and out. So one of the things we have on our checklist is, you know, having the right camera, having the right microphone, you know, and having a wired connection versus being on wireless. And then the next thing I was going to say that we really look for is just having maybe our guest on ahead of time, so that we do a short interview with them to make sure they're set up right, do the trailer for our upcoming webinar, something like that. Because it's amazing to me, you know, how many people have never been on a Hangout. We just expect that they're going to be that they're going to be ready to go, and that's not hardly ever the case. Very few times does that happen. And I would say the next thing after that is to you know, you want to make sure their sound quality and everything else sounds good. That's important.
And lights. If you noticed on me, the lighting isn't too bad, but if I flick on the extra ones, you can see the difference straight away, what happens.
And you
So
can do
that's-
some really, yeah, and I was going to say, you can do some really easy things to fix your lighting. Ted's got little overhead lamps. I went to Home Depot and I bought a couple of these little beauties, the regular mechanics lamps. You know, you just your regular mechanics gooseneck kind of lamps. So I mean, you can use those. So it's pretty easy to get some additional lighting around. So lighting is definitely a big factor, and you want to try to make it, you know, at the right angle so you don't have a lot of shadows behind you, etc. Having a backdrop helps, gives you a cleaner background. I got a couple plants. Some people get custom printed backgrounds. Victoria's got a nice divider behind her. So you see a lot of that stuff. So getting those things together, and I think the next biggest thing that we see go wrong is it's amazing to me how many people will get started without ever practicing, never practicing Hangout, never doing a couple practice sessions with Webinar Jam. It's phenomenal to me. Absolutely blows my mind. But we see that time and time again, don't we?
And it's not just by normal people and that. Just recently, a big name marketer had one, and it blew up on him. Absolutely. We won't say who it was.
But it was bad. And it was 7,000 people on the other end. Yeah, and they tried for like 2 hours to straighten it out. So it wasn't something that was easy to fix, but I literally think they went on without practicing and checking things out. You know, I often say to lots of people, if your life depended on this going right, you'd want to practice, right? You want to make sure that you're ready for what's coming. So anyhow.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
When you were talking earlier about if you have like more than 50 people to use Webinar Jam, if you were to just run a normal Hangout on air with more than 50 people, could that compromise the quality of it? Like say they were all in the audience, but there was like 100 people in the audience. Would that...
Well,
compromise it in what way?
Yeah.
Like would that affect the Hangout in any way?
No,
you can have an unlimited amount of people watching it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
You're welcome.
because you can have 1 million people and it won't affect the Hangout because they're watching it on G+, they're watching it on YouTube, which has got nothing to do with your resources.
Okay.
If you had it embedded on your site, it would depend on the bandwidth you've got on your site. But the only time is that with any effect is when you have people inside the Hangout, especially if they don't know what they're doing, and that's about the only thing. But people watching it then no. So even on, with the Webinar Jam, you've got the ability to shut off the chat if need be and turn that on. But in a Hangout, you've just got to remember that it's 30 seconds behind. So whatever I'm saying now, the people listening to this will hear this in around about 30 seconds. It can be less than that, it can be more than that, but usually we work on the 30-second mark.
And then last thing, oh, go ahead.
Sorry, so just how you just mentioned about the 30-second delay, is that beneficial to slow your talking down a little bit if you can, if you're one of the presenters? Because I know some of us Australians and Kiwis talk quite fast.
Well, not really, because you're still going to, it doesn't matter if you're slow or fast, it's still going to be 30 seconds. You can't speed that up. The gap, and why the gap is there is because everybody's got different bandwidths and computers and everything else, so it's allowing people to be hear the same thing at the same time, more or less. So that's what the difference is.
And the gap may be different too in different areas. So we've found that like where you are, sometimes we see people with a minute gap, and Ted and I, where we have faster internet, the gap might be 20-30 seconds. So it could be shorter here. So you may see some gap, and we also account for that. We'll talk about it as we get more into the actual Webinar Jam app, and we kind of account for that because everything that we put into the Webinar Jam app, the polls, the chat, is all instant. Everything we say, you're not going to hear for 20-30 seconds later. So we try to take that 20-30 seconds into account as we're showing a poll, as we're talking about other things and answering questions, because we know that whatever you're saying or whatever we're talking about in chat is immediate, and then what we say you're hearing 30 seconds or more later. So, and then probably the last thing before we get into actually talking about Webinar Jam is the equipment that we use. You know, you'll see that Tad and I and Victoria, we've got earbuds because you don't want there to be any background noise coming back through your microphone. We talk a lot about the Logitech C920 camera. That's the camera we recommend to everybody because it's absolutely awesome. I mean, crystal clear. You can see that our pictures look great. Big difference. We don't recommend typically, you can get a lot of headsets that are wireless. That may not be a great thing. You wouldn't want your wireless dying on you in the middle of a webinar. Probably not a good choice. So stuff that's wireless, it might seem cool, it might be great to walk around with. Unless you're doing like a whiteboard presentation behind you, you're probably not going to want to use that. Ted uses just the microphone and his camera, which is very, very good quality. I've got, we see some people with blue Yetis. I got a blue Snowball, so I use a separate microphone. And again, Ted just uses one on the camera. It's great. Yeah, they're very nice, actually. So that being said, I think we've walked through kind of the trouble spots, the equipment a little bit. We talked about some of the things that considerations before you get started. But the big thing to remember is if your guests aren't prepared and you find out in that initial interview, do what you can to make sure that they are. It's a bad reflection on them. It's a bad reflection on you if they're not ready to go on and look good. So enough said, I think. So on to Webinar Jam. Why don't we start with, I'll actually go over to setting up the Webinar Jam front end here.
So the very first thing is tell them where they can log into the Webinar Jam, because that's the other thing that we quite often see. People aren't sure where they log into it.
Yeah, why don't you put it up in the as a sticky, and then they can see where you log in. It's Webinar Jam. Well, actually, hang on one second. I've got it. It's not. That's a good idea. It's webinarjam.com/members is where it is. went to share my screen, and for some reason it didn't want to share for me. So I just had to make sure that I was on the right tab. You do see that happen every once in a while, and you know, I mean, the biggest thing is not to panic when you're trying to pull all this together, because that's the big thing. Don't panic. People are actually very forgiving of stuff. So you'll see here that I'm actually in my webinars now, but if I go to the main part of it, this is a listing of all the webinars that we've done, and I usually try to put a date on it to keep it so that I know, when we did it or what the date was. So right now this is the one that we're doing. It's just a test, and I put the date on it, and I can come in here and get links. I can get the analytics, and I can do several actions with it. I can come here and I can edit it, clone it, or delete it from the actions. If I want, I can come to view the analytics, and you'll see that we've got 6 unique visitors, 5 registrations, 5 live attendees, and it would literally tell me registration fees if it was a paid webinar, our actual sales, gross revenue, sales conversions, etc. And we can download a full list of registrants here at the bottom right corner in CSV, so we can bring it up in Excel. So this is just a quick look at the analytics. And if I come back over to my webinars and I go to get your links, you'll see that you've got a couple different things going on in here. You've got your attendee login link, which is what we're sending out for registration. The nice thing now is that it gives us a webinar administrator and presenters links, because before they all came up by email, and if something went wrong, and for instance Tad or Victoria didn't get her link, I couldn't send it to her. I'd have to email them all over again. They still might not get them. Now they get emailed, and I can always copy and paste it into Skype to send them their link. We've got our generic live link, so we can send people directly to the webinar. We've got a replay link, sales tracking code, the advanced custom registration hot link, which what that allows us to do is, let's say for example we're going to run an event, and we want to collect subscriptions ahead of time, and we don't want to have people have to re-sign up again. We can plug in our unique webinar code. I don't know if you guys can see this if I scroll along here, but there's a unique code for every webinar. It's this first number here. Also a unique member ID for each member of Webinar Jam. And if you have dealt with, say, an Aweber or Infusionsoft, you know that there's certain short codes or field codes for your name, your email, etc. And you can plug these into here, and they can just click on that link and automatically be registered for the webinar. And of course, your webinar live replay link is just your embed code to YouTube. So there's nothing here that you can't get from YouTube. It's just right here for your convenience. The video help links are great, and for the links in the webinar room, it talks about the advanced auto registration hot link here and can give you some guidance. And of course, in the community, we actually have some further information about that. Especially if you use Aweber, I actually have the code put in over there. So let's actually go to this webinar for a minute, and we're going to take a look at the webinar itself. So we're going to come back over here. I'm going to go to Action and Edit. So I personally think, the best thing about this is there's a tutorial for each section. There's a tutorial where you start, and then each section we go to, general section, you get video help as the very first thing. Anywhere along, if you get stuck or have a challenge, check out the video help. It's excellent. Hector did a great job on it, I think, Ted. Don't you?
Yes, they've improved it tremendously from when it first came out, because when you first logged in, you did not know what to do. They didn't have a video there or anything, so it was after our suggestion they actually put a video there to start you off on the right note.
Absolutely. And you know, going down through here, now we've got a selection for what language. So we've got a number of different language translations. We can plug in the name of our webinar, which is only for our reference, title of our webinar, a webinar description. You can schedule it for right now, and I mean right now means right now. You can also schedule it for later, so I could select a different date, different time, and time zone. If you do multiple sessions, you don't want to add another session here. This is just really for multiple replay sessions. If you try doing multiple sessions, you're just going to overwrite webinars. And it's actually better for multiple sessions to actually physically do a separate session for each time you run a webinar. Again, if you're going to run an automated style webinar, maybe use EBS. It's probably a better option. Webinar admin setup. So you can see I've got a setup here, name, email you need for the presenter. It's got to be their Gmail. You have to use your Gmail if you're setting up your own account, so it knows which YouTube to go to.
John,
And,
can we go back to one spot?
Yeah, where do you want me to go back to?
We just go back to that last add another session.
Okay, yeah. Oops.
In that area there,
yes.
Is that where if you were to use that clone option that you would do that? If you were doing multiple, like say you're doing a 4-series webinar?
Yeah, I could make a specific copy of this and just put in like maybe a change in the description, or it would just allow me to clone a separate version of. So I could certainly do another session of the same webinar as a separate session very quickly.
And then remember to go through each step and save it. You don't just clone it, change one or two things. You do have to go through each step again, don't you?
Yeah, you do have to go through each step, or I would go through each step again and save it.
Yep.
For some reason in Webinar Jam, you would think that if you just save the particular module that you were on, it would be okay. You go to the end and you republish it and it saves everything. It doesn't seem to do that. So you want to go through, if you make a change in any specific module, you want to go all the way back through and go back and save each module as you go along.
And that
really is only,
yeah,
even
if
really
you're
only 10 minutes anyway. Yeah.
Even if you're not making any other changes, go through all of it and click on save.
Right. That's something I have not seen anywhere in Webinar Jam documentation or anything. So, but that is something that you want to do. The other thing we discovered recently is if you make a mistake in, like, say, the replay, you forgot to turn the questions on or something like that. And I'll talk about it again when we get there. But you can actually go in and make changes later to affect the replay even after you've done the webinar. So that's something that we just discovered recently too.
That's cool.
That is cool. It's nice that you can do that.
Yeah.
So here we are. We can choose what kind of a webinar we're going to have. Is it going to be free to register? If there's going to be a charge to register, we're just going to plug in our information here, link to our payment checkout page. It's going to give us a webinar registration page that's going to say that it's paid up, and then the post-payment URL. You're going to just go through this with your payment processing system. So you can have free to register and pay to register webinars. And again, each time we go through, want to make sure you save the module as you go along. Any changes. Notifications. Man, this is another trouble spot, right, Ted? We see so many people who forget to activate their email reminder notifications. They should be defaulted that way to send out at least the system notifications, but they're not. So you want to make sure that you go and you activate them, and you want to make sure that you activate each one. Send a welcome mail. Check through them.
One thing on that email activations is, I know that a lot of people, when they are organising a hangout, they leave it to the last minute. Mm-hmm. And I reckon, if they just make it a practice to at least give it 2 days. I mean, obviously the longer the better for the marketing side of it, but they leave it so late, and then the email notification probably, would that affect that if they said, okay, in an hour or 2 hours we're going to do a webinar jam thing, then the email notification, can you adjust the time that is sent out to you in at all? Or is it just a set, like?
They're pretty much a set time. You can't adjust them, but they're going to go out. They're going to go out in plenty of time. I mean, you're going to have your registration email that comes back thanking you for joining the webinar. So that one's going to come right after you register, and then you're going to get one again reminding you, a little bit ahead of time, and then the next one's going to come an hour ahead of time, and then the final one's going to come minutes ahead of time. But the other
the thing
too,
about the thing about that is that this is global. And the power of Webinar Jam is that if you've got people in different parts of the world, it is so beneficial to plan ahead and to give them plenty of time by letting, having those notifications go out to them, as opposed to, okay, we're having a Webinar Jam session in 4 hours and someone's on the other side of the world and they might read that email at 10 o'clock at night, which now makes it 2 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
And then they go, so that time difference as well. So, yeah, I can see the benefits of having that email notification for sure.
Oh, yeah, and what you're going to want to do, too, is maybe use a combination of your own autoresponder with the email notifications that you can control the exact time that goes. So, for instance, I might put in a notification message coming from AWeber reminding them, 5 or 6 hours ahead. So you can always add that in to work too. And the one thing that always bothers me a little bit here is when you do the welcome emails, you'll see there's no subject line. So you want to remember to put in your subject line. You also have all of the lorem ipsum dolor Latin here at the bottom. So you got to come and adjust the messages. So you want to make sure that you come through, adjust all the messages. Again, that's for each one. A lot of times, even if you just cut this out and just send it, it's better than it's probably all the pertinent info they need for the most part. And here's where you could queue up some other pre-webinar email notifications. And these you can adjust when they come out so many hours before the webinar. But I actually like to use a combination of, like I said, some of my own, maybe with the system ones. So you can adjust how many hours before. And of course, you can queue up other pre-webinar reminders. So that one could be 4 hours before. You do another one 2 hours before. It's just how big a pain do you want to be? You can also queue up post-webinar email notifications to go out X hours after the webinar, and they can go to all registrants. They could go to people who attended, people who didn't attend, people who got the email, attended, and ordered your product, people who got the email, attended, and didn't order your product. So you really got a pretty wide variety that you can send them to. It's really all you need, but you got to make sure that you, one, check it, and that you walk through all the messages. You can activate SMS phone call reminders, and that works through a service called Tropo. All the documentation is here, and it's relatively easy to set up. You just go over to Tropo. You can put it in test mode, and get it ready to where you like it, and then set it up. And then after that point, you actually can start paying for the service. So they give you plenty of space to get it set up and working. So hey, that's email notifications. Again, a bit of a trouble spot. Lots of people forget to check that they need to go on here. So, integrations. This integrates pretty much with just about any mailing autoresponder company that you'd like. We got AWeber, GetResponse, Infusionsoft, most of the common ones. You can integrate with others as long as you can get the HTML code from your autoresponder, which again, most offer you. It integrates with Google Analytics, so you can see where we can put our Google Analytics code in. You can put your own custom tracking pixels in. And if you do this, you know what your tracking software looks like. You know, everybody has different tracking software available to them. It integrates with Facebook. So we can use retargeting traffic tracking or conversion conversion tracking with Facebook as well. I'll just leave that a second. You can see putting the code registration page, post registration, etc. And of course, retargeting tracking huge now because you can retarget folks after doing your webinar, which is great. They also have their own advanced API. I see they've got their own API guide now, and you can see it's got your member ID, webcode, API key. I'm not sure what that plugs into yet. I haven't looked at it that closely, but again, they have the guide here. I'm sure they know who it plugs in with. I think it's more for custom stuff that the guys at Infusionsoft and Omniport, some of those companies would program for you on a custom basis. We got our thank you, so we can set up a custom video message if we'd like. Countdown, again, we can put in a countdown video before the broadcast. We've got our live page, so you can see here we are, I enabled pre-configured polls. Put in a poll just so you could see it. I pre-configured a webinar offer. See, I just did something for Webinar Jam, so I'll show what that looks like when I put it up. And nice too now, because you can pre-configure multiple polls, you can pre-configure additional offers. You don't have to do it on the fly while you're online, which is kind of a hassle. The pre-recorded video we have, Ted will tell you it's not one of our favorite features. We've used it a couple times, but it's really, in my estimation, there's better ways to do a hybrid recording or a recorded webinar. This probably isn't the best solution to use. And of course, we can display social sharing media buttons. So there's the social sharing side. For replay, lots of things we can configure here. You can have the actual replay of the recorded live session. You could create your own recording that people could go to. You could redirect to a URL of your choice. Apply an expiration period, so you could have no expiration. Access to the replay page expires after 72 hours, 48 hours, whatever you'd like. I actually do a lot with no expiration. I was sharing with Ted the other day that we still get a lot of subscriptions to our webinars that have no expiration on them. I'm not sure how they're finding them, but hey, who wouldn't like extra subscribers, right? You can keep your replay videos private or make your replay video public. If you want your replay to be private, you also need to go into Google+, find the post for your webinar, and delete it so that it is completely private. That is one thing Webinar Jam does not do, is delete that post. So just something to keep in mind, that's something you need to do. You can choose to display a question box on your replay. I like that because people will always have questions after the webinar. You can activate your pop-in offers on your replay now, and you can have multiple pop-in offers on your replay. And it was interesting, Ted, Dennis Becker was saying to me the other day, we were talking about, well, how do you know how long you should delay the offer in? Well, you can always preset it up for, say, 20 minutes in, and you're probably going to go at least an hour, maybe a little more, and then come back and adjust it after the fact and resave it. So you can at least start with something. Make sense?
Cool. Yeah.
Yes.
So like you can see, we can have multiple offers, and again, we can have social media share buttons, Facebook and Twitter on the replay. And again, you want to save at each step as you go along. Miscellanea is where we can put in our ID for the affiliate program. So if anybody sees our webinar and says, "Oh, this is cool, I'd like to buy Webinar Jam," who's going to refuse a sale, right? And of course, last note, publish your webinar. And again, if you make any changes along the way, you want to go back, save at each step, come back and republish. So they do have a little bit of training here. So you can click on the training link. You'll see they've got info on setting up your webinar, etc. So there is some training available. A user guide talks about the one-click registration. and you do have analytics, so you can come and select your webinar here for analytics. So, I don't know, we getting any questions so far, Ted? Or anybody have any questions so far?
No, just David put in there, yes, the email templates are not idiot-proof like GoToWebinar. They should just auto-base daily reminders.
Yeah, that would probably be good if they did something like that. All right, I'm gonna hop out of screen share, and then, like I said, if you have any questions as we go along, feel free to pop them in. We'd be glad to answer anything that you have. And now, if I can have Ted, my lovely assistant, share his screen, we can actually look at the Webinar Jam application.
We hope.
We're gonna try it out. All right, so here we are. And as you can see down the right-hand side, this is our Webinar Jam app. And on the left-hand side, it is the white app with the red lightning bolt in it. So you can see that on the left-hand side of the screen. Yep.
Stop. Have you white boxed him? Because I'm still seeing you on the main screen.
Yeah, I white boxed him. So what you have to do is that actually brings up a good point. I, as the producer, control what records. So whoever I white box gets put in the final recording. Each individual person that's in the panel, they need a white box who they want to see on the main screen.
Thank you.
So it might not necessarily pop up for you, and they actually put a lot of emphasis now on taking out the automatic rotation. So the automatic rotation works differently than it once did. So just keep that in mind as well.
Okay.
In Webinar Jam. So if we go to here's the chat. You can see you can enable or disable the chat box just with a click. So you guys out there now are noticing that I've taken the chat up. You can't comment anymore. And I can put that back down. The sticky that's here, I could remove it, etc. Or redisplay a new one. So I've got display or remove. We can allow both public and private messages. We tend to not use this for our private messages. We tend to use the inside chat because you'd hate to accidentally send something maybe you didn't want to the audience. So that's one of the reasons that we try to use the actual Hangout chat inside the room and Webinar Jam chat just for outside for you guys watching. If you want to go over to the polls next, you'll see I just set up a simple poll I'm going to send out to you guys. So I'm going to add the poll. Oops, didn't mean to add the poll option. Sorry about that. Start the poll. So if you guys want to vote, you can see we can also vote as well. I get to see what Ted's voting for. How cool is that? All right, so I'll give you guys a couple seconds to vote. And I'll end it. All right, so end the poll. And then you'll see we get the results back. So you can see the results of the poll. And again, you can have multiple polls set up here. Just once they're done, reset them. I could have had several created on the fly that I could have put up automatically, which is great. Them after, you want to make sure that you actually copy paste them out. If we go to attendees next, you'll see who's attending the webinar. So thanks guys for dropping in and attending today. We appreciate it. Hope you're learning something, getting a lot out of it. You can see in the attendees that you can send private messages. You've got little envelopes on each person. Yep, and you can also boot somebody out of the room is the next one over. Yeah, so you just send a private message to David. Yeah, you probably don't want to kick David out. That might be bad. And going up above, I forgot to mention, we can also redirect all the attendees to a URL. So like, for instance, if I wanted to direct them to, I don't know, hangoutsmadeeasy.net, we could show them what it looks like. You got to do the whole HTTP though. Sorry, Ted. So yeah, you could redirect them, but the one thing you don't want to do is redirect them to a out completely. You want to redirect them to open in a new tab. Otherwise, it redirects them right out of your webinar, possibly before it's over, which wouldn't be very exciting. So if you want to do that, you can redirect that. It's in a new tab, so you'll see a tab come up next to this one, where so like for instance, maybe we want to have a survey at the end, like an exit survey, something like that. You could just redirect over to that that survey. A couple people had asked us that. I think Stuart asked us in our the other day how we could redirect to a survey. We have our pop-ins. So if I pop over to pop-ins, you'll see I created a sample offer for Webinar Jam, and I'm displaying that now. So, you know, if we were trying to sell Webinar Jam from here, that's our affiliate link, and you could buy it. And you could do that for free issue, you know, free things, free gifts, or anything. The one thing that we loved about this when we first looked at Webinar Jam is, let's say we're having a full-blown summit. What a great way to offer offers for every single person that is part of the summit. And that was one of the first things that sold us right on Webinar Jam when we first looked at it.
This might be a time that Victoria might want to ask some questions, because she was asking about the other app in Hangouts versus this one.
Yeah, when we just do a normal Hangout on air and they've got the new Showcase app that is available and you can just pop that in, how is this more of a benefit, like you say, because you can just do you have to set this up prior to the Webinar Jam session that we're doing, or can it can't really be done on the fly? Or
this you don't have to. Showcase you have to set up prior, and Showcase is something that you do just from an event. So like for instance, if we're having an event and we're using the Google Hangouts event window, we have to actually add that prior to doing that. So, but Showcase is kind of similar, but again, it lets you have that feature directly from Hangouts.
And if someone was to click on the add to cart now for that pop-in you've popped in, would that go to another window, or would that take them off our Hangout?
It won't take them off our Hangout. It'll pop up in another tab. So it'll pop them out in another window or tab to go purchase.
So
it won't actually take them off the webinar.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. And last thing we got is videos. So if we click on videos, you'll see that I put in a video. I'm not going to show it, but if I click on it and I were to start video, it would actually start this video. And that's what they call the hybrid video, which we're not great fans of. It doesn't work quite right. It doesn't record to the final video on YouTube. So I mean, there's some downsides to it. So we don't use it. We prefer to actually do our webinars live. When they're done, we plug them into EBS, or you could plug them into lots of other things where you could set them out to be repurposed on Facebook, etc. So
could you do
there's better ways to do that.
Could you do that as a PowerPoint presentation, but just put it in that link, or would it have to be a video? If someone was showing you a PowerPoint presentation about something they were doing.
Yeah, it would have to be a video.
Okay.
And again, if we use it, it doesn't put anything onto the final video. You're gonna have like a blank spot where you use the hybrid video.
Yeah.
In your YouTube, which then you need to go back and fill in later.
Which I guess is really a protection mechanism, isn't it, for copyright stuff, in case someone's got music going in the background of that video they've got. I guess that's how they...
That's exactly why they do it. And you brought up an interesting point, and that is that so many times people want to show slides. You want to show a PowerPoint. You want to use a ScreenFlow or QuickTime perhaps instead. And using slides with animations or windows to drop down, things like that, don't show on Hangouts typically. So you want to make sure they're in a PDF form, that you're not using animations. You can play video. There's other ways to play video through the screen. You know, many times I'll just do it. I'll play the video and on replay, and put my earbuds up to my microphone. But there's some other things that we'll be talking about as we go along here. Other ways to do that. So there are some ways around it.
Okay.
Probably not something you want to do right away. Start out easy, work your way up to more advanced things. But you mentioned an interesting thing, Victoria, and that's, like I said, lots of people want to do slides. If you've got two screens or two monitors, it's really easy. If you only have one monitor, you want to make sure that your presentation is on a separate window and possibly in separate tabs. And the things that you're going to show, if you have, say, a presentation, your website, something like that, and they're all in separate tabs, you can screen share and go from one tab to the next without having to re-screen share. So that's what you want to make sure that you've got all set up. Maybe make your presentation window a little bit longer and up a little higher so you can easily jump from your Hangout window to the screen you're sharing, or to the window you're sharing. So those are some little tricks to kind of help out with that.
Thank you.
And aside from that, Ted, I don't know, is there anything you can come back?
There's 2 questions from David, or a question from David.
All right, let me take a peek at that. David says, I'm just in 2 sessions, one main computer, one iPad. Even on Expand the Visuals on iPad are way sketchier. Is this normal?
I would probably say that because on the iPad he's on Wi-Fi.
Probably, yeah. So I don't know if there's a way to have your iPad wired or not. That will improve things. Obviously, you want to be wired if you can be. The other thing that obviously works, as you can see, I'm using Ted's screen for screen sharing. So Ted's kind enough to share me here. Thank you very much. And you can do that. So I can actually speak and share another screen. You can do the same thing yourself. You could be on the Hangout on your PC, and maybe to your presentation from your iPad or your phone or another computer, laptop, whatever. So that actually works out as a good presentation scheme as well.
David's now got another question.
Shoot, David.
David says, great, I found it tough with one screen when I was on holiday. When you say tabs, do you mean browser tabs?
Yes, David, I mean browser tabs. So I don't know if I can show mine that I have set up. I don't know if you can see the browser tabs on it or not. But I had set up earlier, I'm on multiple, let me see here a minute.
That's correct, David. It is always best to get wired regardless.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely better. So I'm just looking at my screen share. I think you can see that I have multiple browsers. I could go, or browser tabs. If I were to go back to that window, maybe. It's easy for me because I have that to easily go from one thing to...
You might be finding that the screen share is blocking that out. I don't know.
Yeah. So I mean, it's easy for me to go one thing to say another thing. Quite simple there. Screen sharing might be blocking that out. That's possible. They've added a new feature for the screen sharing too, which it shows you at the top of your screen. Your screen sharing. Do you want to stop? Do you want to present to everyone? And of course, I had it to present to everyone. So I can present to everyone or stop. So that's another thing you want to be aware of that's new. I haven't noticed it come up all the time, just on occasion.
I think it's on all the time now when you're actually screen sharing.
Yeah, I've had a couple times where it hasn't popped up. Like when I first screen shared, it wasn't, and now it is. So, but you can see it on Ted's here. If I bring him up to the front, you can see up here at the top it says you're presenting to everyone. Do you want to stop? etc. at the top of the screen.
Do you know, one question I'm surprised people haven't asked us is how come we're showing the inside without the tunnel of death? What's the tunnel of death? This.
Yeah, yeah. I am surprised they haven't. I am surprised they haven't asked that question.
Do you like that?
That's nice. You want to
Lovely.
tell them?
No.
I'll let you. I'll let you
No.
explain that one.
No.
Sure, sure. Go ahead. No, I think we can. I think we can tell them.
Only if people ask will we explain.
Could you please explain what the tunnel of death is?
What you just saw. That was the tunnel of death. So you just saw it a second ago. That was the tunnel of death.
Why
appears
you
when
actually
share your
get
own screen.
that? Why you actually get that is because the camera is trying to show what is on the screen, and then because there's a slight change, it's then showing it again, and that's why it keeps repeating in that model.
So would you turn your camera off before you did that? Before you went to that screen share then, to avoid that?
No, there's just a certain way that we have literally found out just recently, and that was with your help, because we noticed that you were suddenly on there. You hadn't realised what you had done, and then we worked out from you sharing your screen how it happened. So.
You know, that
Cool.
David's asking a great question. He thought it was magic we were doing. No, no magic here. But as long as Ted is kind enough to share his screen, let's. I'll pop back over to it, and I think he can share some of the other apps that we use. We saw him use screen sharing, which is the little green monitor with white arrow in it. That's one that we use quite commonly for presenting. Obviously, the main one that we use for presenting. If you want to have your lower thirds up, that's in your Hangout toolbox. I'm going to just click on that a second. So you see him clicking the Hangout toolbox. It's a little toolbox with a wrench in it, suitcase with a wrench. You click on the portrait, and you'll see we actually have quite a wide variety of things available. One of the challenges we're having now is in Chrome, in some cases, you see I can't bring up my lower thirds. That seems to be a Google Chrome issue. But the biggest things you're going to use, like I said, the screen share. You might use Hangout Toolbox if you're doing a lower third. You also may use the control panel for presenting.
And the
like
thing
if you're doing a
about,
round
sorry,
table.
can you go back? The thing about that lower third is I remember when you showed me how you could pop a full screen thing up. It's not just a lower third. You could also put a little offer thing in there, eh? Or
You could create any graphic that will fit in there. You could have just a plain card with things on it. If Ted, actually, I'll have to screen share.
Yeah, I can't do it.
Yeah, come back when you come back.
Or
You can show
what
them a
if
full
at
screen.
the very beginning of it? What if at the very beginning of your webinar you had "Welcome to the webinar" and your name or whatever, the graphic welcoming them in? And so could you do a couple of those and save them, like the lower third, and then have one at the beginning and one at the end of the webinar that you were doing?
You absolutely could. In fact, I have one that
Cool.
actually blanks me out. I call it my camo one, so that I could actually be the
Stealth
producer
mode.
behind the scenes. And if somebody wanted to have a round table, I don't necessarily have to be seen as part of the panel.
Yeah.
So
Thank you. Cool.
I have that as well. So there's a lot of things that you can do with that. We would do even like some of our slide presentations as overlays. You could also do, like say you've got multiple guests on at different times. You could have the time next to the person's name and have a card that you pop up, coming next, something like that. So there's a lot of things that you can do with that.
Cool.
So those are probably the big ones. Google Effects, of course, the first thing you see everybody doing is putting on funny hats and glasses and all of that stuff. So that's another one that we use quite frequently is Google Effects. And of course, Ted just turned it on, so get ready.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. I don't know. Anything we missed, Ted, that you can think of?
No, not really.
Oh, there you go. Ted's picking out his funny hat, so we can see him now. Applause. Quite a wide variety there. Are you coming back now or what?
Can do.
All right. Oh, there we go.
How do I turn it off? Removal effects.
Hey, that's a new one.
What's that?
I haven't seen the Venice one before.
Yeah, it's nice, isn't it? So,
I think that's new. So, you know, one thing you'll notice with Hangouts is there's lots of new things going on, being added, etc. And Ted's got the full screen now, so we can't see him. It's completely whited out. Full screen is nice to have. For instance, if you have to get up in the middle of a webinar, you don't want somebody seeing, you know, like a group one. You don't necessarily want somebody seeing your chair. Oh, other app, put the pirate hat on. That's right, it's Be Like a Pirate week, isn't it? I forgot that.
Right.
We can do that because it is as we're talking today. It is Be Like a Pirate Day or whatever. So there you go. I won't let me do anything. I can't do special effects either. Wow. So that's a little Google Chrome bug, I think. Can't do.
And your audio's gone a little bit funny.
Has it?
Yeah.
Oh well. As long as people can still hear me for the moment, it's all good.
There. Let's please David.
There you go. Ted's got his pirate hat on.
So, oh, Victoria did as well.
Very nice. I can't do that. Sorry.
Right. Any other questions that we haven't answered or people want us to recap on?
Or
I did think of two things.
Yeah.
Like I said, do trailers with your guests before your big event in closing. You also camera. Great to take pictures inside the Hangout. You know, especially when you have silly people like Ted wearing pirate hats. We just got to get a shot at it. But the pictures are great too because you can use them in your promotions of the event or whatever. So it's good to do that even before, again, in that maybe 3 to 4 minute trailer you do before your event that you put into your webinar jam. Producer we use a little bit too, so you might want to take a look at that.
Yeah. I was just going to say on there, the camera app comes down in the middle of the screen. That's where you take the picture from.
Oh, that's a good idea. Marshall said he got a tip from Lon Naylor. He uses a big red arrow as his cursor, so it shows up better on presentations than using a regular little white cursor. That's very true. It is hard for people to see. There's a draw feature that works, or might be something that you could use too.
Yeah, sure. Audio is getting really bad.
Oh,
You shouldn't have clicked the Google effect, I don't think.
I guess not.
Right. What other apps did you want to see? Did you say?
who me?
Control panel I was talking about. That was the only other one that I thought people might use, like if you've got guests and you want to back them off a little bit. Anyways, look at Control Panel sometime, and you guys can you can see when you're in a Hangout. It allows you to adjust the volume of your guests, video, turn the video on off if you need to, stuff like that. It's more like an emergency thing. And then, of course, always realize that in the upper right-hand corner of each of your guests in the film strip, you've got the choice of being able to hide them from the broadcast, go to their profile, you can mute them out, so if they've got noise, you can at least help control that. So, anyways, if you guys don't have any more questions, I'll probably close it off there. But appreciate y'all being here.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Appreciate you all being here, and I hope you found this useful. And like I said, if there's any other questions that you have, ask in the community. We're here to help.
Or if there's anything else that you want us to cover for you, just let us know. And I'll come back and stop sharing.
Yeah, come back and stop sharing. We'll leave the recording on just for a couple more seconds in case there's anything else you'd like to see. So
This is a typical example of making sure that by the time you hear this and you did want to answer something, we're allowing time for that 30 seconds to go through, because now you're hearing what John just said, if there's any more questions, and it gives you a little bit of time to actually answer them, and we're not just cutting you off.
the only way the viewer can use lose the chat or polls, attendees or pop-ins, is if I disable the chat box, like I just did now. So you'll see the chat box is disabled. It'll say you can't chat. So I've just disabled that, which is great because if you have a huge audience, we discovered that the hard way, and they get bickering with one another, you can roll that up so it just stops all of that, because it becomes very public and it's a mess. That's the only downside to the chat on this, is that it is a very public scene. The attendees and pop-ins will still stay at the top. You may or may not be able to click on them and bring them up. David just gave me something. Oh, one other thing that happens a lot of time. We were just talking about this the other day. You end up in a challenge spot where maybe your presenter can't get in. There's two reasons for that we've discovered. One is you might have a Google business account, in which case you have to invite your presenter from inside before they can use their admin link, and that's a Google Apps account. It's the 15-panel Google Hangout panel that you pay for. You have to actually invite them from inside before they can take on the admin role or use their link. And then the other thing is, maybe they can't get in, they can't use the Webinar Jam app. But they're presenting, right? You can give them the URL and just invite them in. They just won't have the Webinar Jam app. But frankly, if you're presenting, it kind of is a distraction. So as long as somebody has it, that's really the big issue. And Marshall, that is totally the thing. You just need to practice. Like I said, that's the biggest downfall of most folks when they're trying to do this, is that they never practice. They just think, hey, I can wing it. I'll be fine. I've done this before, done something like it. I think I can handle it. And you know what? Hangouts are simple, but they're not easy. There's a little ramp up involved, and there's a lot that can go wrong. And Rick, you're very welcome.
And just by going into your community, they can find someone to practice with, because they're pretty active in the community there.
That's exactly true. That was one of the reasons we designed.
Don't let that be a reason. Don't let that be a reason not to get moving with it, that you haven't got someone to practice with. Jump into the community and see if you can find a playmate, and do it.
Yeah, that was one of the reasons we designed our community the way we did, because we wanted people to be able to practice. We saw that when we started Hangouts, right, Ted? Remember our first one? I remember our first one. And blamed me for something he did that made a lot of noise. Remember that? Ted had his speakers on into the microphone, and he was blaming me. But yeah, I mean, the reason, that's why we got these on now. But that's the thing, you need to practice. It's the biggest, most important piece. How do you upgrade an attendee as a presenter? Real easy. Would you guys like to come in?
Yeah. Do you want to come into the Hangout? Type it in.
Hang on.
I've got like a heartbeat noise in my audio going on. It's really weird.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I can hear this.
Really?
I'm not dead then.
So I posted.
How do you upgrade an attendee as a presenter? David's got a question there.
Okay.
Go on.
David, I did say, he says, how do you upgrade an attendee as a presenter? I sent you the link, David. Come on in. That's your invitation.
So you have to send someone a link.
So all you got to do is click it if you want to come in.
Yeah, all you do, if you want to get somebody in here, is to copy the URL at the top.
Yeah.
And then post that to them either privately or just as
publicly,
a message.
but more than likely, what you really want to do, I obviously published it. There's David.
Hey!
I obviously published it publicly because I'm not too concerned. It's just a small audience, so even if all of you decide to come on, there's plenty of room. But obviously, you could do it privately by there's a little email message thing you can send to each person individually. So I think David.
So I've got a question about that. The question I've got about that is that, you know, when you showed us in Webinar Jam how each person had a separate little wee codey thing on the end of their link for attendees, do presenters not have that? Do presenters not have that individual link? So, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, David.
Are you still white box, John?
I am now white boxed. I probably should white box me.
When other people were talking, you weren't coming off the screen.
Oh, okay. So I'm white boxed now. But you can see that's one of the dangers of having somebody pop on. David, not quite prepared. We didn't schedule this obviously ahead of time. And, you know, I can see David's camera's not working. He's got a little bit of noise. So, I mean, I'm getting
about 13 different... I'm getting about 13 different sounds.
Is that because you've got your iPad on?
That's
and your live link?
No, the iPad's...
Yeah, and you're probably listening to the broadcast at the same time that you've
got to mute them before you come on.
You gotta mute the broadcast window. Yeah, so this is the stuff that happens. So you can see why there is a danger to inviting somebody on like this because there's no preparation involved. So just know that that's the case.
I've just killed the other one, and all those other voices have disappeared.
Awesome. Do you have a camera, David?
Yeah, I do. I did think I had it on, but no, actually, this is the other computer. It hasn't got it. I can make a cam on.
Yeah, because all I hear is like a color. Sees a color rainbow.
Yeah, just give me a few seconds.
I'll find out the curtains.
Thanks for playing with us, David. I appreciate it.
Well, actually, it is simply a Windows with curtains. Believe it or not. But this is mine. That hasn't got this one yet. It hasn't got the Logitech. There you go.
Hey, welcome, David.
Hey,
excellent. Thanks for joining us.
There you go. So yeah, it is window with curtains.
All right. So here we go. Any questions? Any questions, David, aside from what you asked already?
Yeah, when I had all those multiple voices, it was like it was a real spin out, I must say. So yeah, it's good to close it down. What I was going to ask you is, how did you just sent the presenter link? Was that it? You just went into your Webinar Jam members area and grabbed the links?
What I did is I went to each Hangout has its own URL, just like URL.
If you look above, you should see that same URL.
Yep.
Oh, the one in your URL, you just copy and paste that. Fantastic.
Yeah, that's the Hangout. That's the actual Hangout
right.
URL.
So we could invite anybody in. It's a great way to invite somebody that's a presenter. Maybe they didn't get their URL for the admin, so they could get Webinar Jam. The only thing is you don't have Webinar Jam, but you'd be able to use any of the Hangout tools inside here.
Actually,
Webinar Jam.
Okay. I've got the Hangout toolbox here, and do I have the? Yeah, no, it's not. Oh no, there's a Webinar Jam app here. It's opening up for me.
Yes, but you won't be able to see it.
No, you won't be able to use it for this webinar. It's because you own it, but you're not tied into this webinar. So even if you own it, you might have the Webinar Jam app, and that's a really good question. I'm glad you brought that up. You might have the Webinar Jam app, but Marshall's saying I'm not seeing David. I'm sorry. I just white box me, Marshall, but here's David right here. So now I got David white box.
There you go. How's that?
Hey, there you go. It's even brighter. I like that. So where are you from, David?
I'm Australia, in Sydney at the moment.
Nice. We got the Australian connections here today.
Yeah, we got the odd
Kiwi. Got the odd Kiwi over the other side.
Yeah, because Victoria, that's where she's from too.
I'm up on the Sunshine Coast, David.
Oh, that's where. Oh, it should be on the Gold Coast. That's where most New Zealanders go, isn't it?
Too busy. It's too busy down there.
Oh, it's out of control. It's out of control. The surf is just ridiculous. Yeah.
Great to get you to pop in. So,
too many tourists.
But you can see this is what you get when have people pop in with us. So it's cool.
Okay. So we're getting. Oh right, we got the pirates in the photos. There we go.
Yeah, we got some pirate. We got Ted the pirate in the photo. Mine's not working today, so just my luck.
But the other apps in the Hangout, they'll all work for you, David. It's you just hover over your mouse and or hover your mouse over the screen, shall I say, and then if you want the Hangout toolbox or effects, you just click on there, and they'll come up over on the right-hand side, and then you can do it from there.
And I've noticed a new thing which says Showcase, which I hadn't noticed before. What is that?
It's more for events. So if you were doing just like a regular Hangout event, and you can use the Showcase, it kind of works like your pop-ins. So it would allow you to pop in an offer during an event.
Okay.
But you must activate it. Yeah, you must activate it when you set
before you go in.
Right. Okay. Same with Q&A. You have to activate before you go into the Hangout too.
Yeah. Yeah. That sort of disturbed me. So you don't really need Q&A if you've got the Webinar Jam link in.
Don't need it at all.
No. Yeah.
No. There is a new thing. The applause meter is new. So now if people are watching your webinars, I'm not sure whether you guys could see it when you're watching on Webinar Jam, but in events now in YouTube, you've got this applause meter that runs across, and you can vote on your favorite time periods during the webinar.
Oh, right, okay.
I don't know if it shows up. I didn't look to see if it shows up on the Webinar Jam event. Do any of you guys see that if you're watching? Do you see like a little the little applause meter that comes on? It's like little teeny dots underneath the video. I'm guessing it might be blocked out.
Put it in chat for me, and I'll check up on it today, John.
The link? Okay.
Yeah.
Let me go grab it a second. Hold on. Because that's a new feature, and I'm not sure whether it shows up yet with Webinar Jam or not. We should ask Hector about that, because that would be a really cool thing. I mean, it's something certainly I would think you'd want to utilize if you could.
What we're going to be using now is the internal chat, David, and this is the one that only the presenters see. Nobody else outside.
Is that the little blue chat at the top?
That's correct.
Exactly. Because, like I said, it's too easy to make a mistake and send something to your viewers that they may not want to look at.
Exactly.
They may not want.
But how does it? Does it pop up automatically if you've got a choice? Can you do that again? And just because I had the chat open already and it just popped up.
Oh, the chat. Yeah. It won't pop up automatically, but you'll usually see a little message that says chat with a one message or whatever, and you can just grab it.
Okay.
So I see that people are leaving us. So.
Bye.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate this very much. It's
no problem.
Really useful.
Thank you.
Yeah, so
it doesn't show up, by the way.
Okay. So that's something maybe Hector will find a way to allow it to incorporate or whatever. But thank you everybody for joining us. Appreciate you popping in.
Thanks, John.
Anybody
Thanks,
else
Ted.
wants to pop in, feel free.
Thanks, Miss
But I'm
Victoria.
going to stop the broadcast. So, thanks again, everybody.
Bye
Thank
now.
you.